The lawyer's voice trembled through the phone. "Mr. Chen, please, Sarah's willing to negotiate. The patents. We had no idea." I leaned back in my leather chair, watching my sister's $2 million company crumble, while my worthless inheritance had just generated its 15th major settlement. "Tell her I'm busy," I said, ending the call. "My name is Marcus Chen. I'm 28 years old, and 3 months ago I watched my sister inherit everything I thought mattered. Well, almost everything." The lawyer's office smelled like old leather and broken dreams that Tuesday afternoon. Sarah sat beside me, perfectly composed in her tailored navy suit, while I fidgeted with my worn jeans and polo shirt. She'd always been the polished one. Harvard MBA, client dinners, boardroom presentations. I was just the guy who made the software actually work. Our father had built Chen Technologies from nothing. Started in his garage back in the 90s, tinkering with inventions that nobody wanted. Then he got smart, pivoted to enterprise software, and built something real. $2 million real. The reading began exactly as I expected. Sarah inherited the company. Every client contract, every revenue stream, every prestigious business relationship Dad had cultivated over 20 years. She nodded like she deserved it. Maybe she did. Then came my turn. "To my son Marcus," the lawyer read, "I leave my collection of original patents, filed between 1995 and 2005, currently stored in my office filing cabinet." He paused, adjusting his glasses. "Along with all associated documentation and intellectual property rights." A cardboard box. That's what I got. Sarah actually smirked, not even trying to hide it. "Well, that's sweet," she said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "A participation trophy." The box sat in the corner of the lawyer's office like a sad afterthought. Dusty, taped shut, probably full of Dad's failed experiments from before the company found its footing. While Sarah walked away with a thriving business, I got his junk drawer. But the real humiliation came the next day. Sarah called me into what used to be Dad's office, now hers apparently. She'd already moved her stuff in. New nameplate, fresh flowers, the works. "Marcus, we need to talk about restructuring." I knew what was coming. The company needs fresh direction, market conditions, budget concerns. All the corporate speak for "you're fired." "I'm letting you go," she said, not even looking up from her computer. "The engineering team needs new leadership, and frankly, the company needs to move away from legacy thinking." Legacy thinking. That was me, apparently. "You'll get severance, of course. And, hey," she gestured toward the cardboard box I'd brought to clean out my desk. "Maybe you can frame some of those patents. You know, for nostalgia." 5 years. 5 years I'd worked there, building the technical backbone that kept her precious client. Relationships profitable. Every late-night debugging code, every system architecture decision, every innovation that kept us competitive. Apparently worth nothing compared to her networking skills and business degree. I sat in my apartment that night, staring at the box. 27 patents, according to the inventory sheet. Titles like Dynamic Voice Recognition Protocol and Adaptive Network Communication System. Dates from when I was still in middle school, back when Dad was throwing ideas at the wall to see what stuck. Nothing stuck, obviously. That's why he moved on to safer, more profitable ventures. I almost threw them away. Would have been easier than dealing with the reminder of how little Dad apparently thought of my contributions. Sarah got the empire. I got his failures. Instead, something made me open the first folder. Patent number US 7 234,991. Filed March 15, 2003. Dynamic Neural Network Optimization Protocol for Voice Recognition Systems. Dad's handwritten notes filled the margins. Technical specifications that looked surprisingly familiar. The algorithm structure reminded me of something I'd seen recently. Machine learning frameworks. AI training protocols. Wait a minute. This wasn't just similar to modern AI systems. This was nearly identical to processes that billion-dollar companies were using right now. Companies that definitely hadn't invented these methods themselves. The weird part is, I almost missed it completely. I spent the next 3 weeks doing something I'd never done before in my life. I became obsessed. Every morning, I'd wake up and dive straight into those patent files. Coffee grew cold while I cross-referenced Dad's algorithms with current industry standards. My laptop became a shrine of open browser tabs, patent databases, technical journals, AI development forums. Sarah thought she'd fired a washed-up engineer. Turns out she'd just given me unlimited time to discover I was sitting on a gold mine. The breakthrough came on a Tuesday. Patent US 6 891,234. Adaptive Learning Algorithm for Pattern Recognition Systems. Filed in 2001. Dad's handwritten notes described a training methodology that looked suspiciously identical to the core process that 3 major tech companies were currently using for their AI platforms. Not similar, identical. I called my buddy Jake from college. He worked at one of those companies now, making 6 figures writing machine learning code. Hey Jake, quick question about your neural network training protocols. 20 minutes later, I hung up with a very clear picture. They were using Dad's algorithm. Word for word, line by line. And they had no idea they were infringing on a 20-year-old patent. But here's the thing about patents most people don't understand. They don't expire for 20 years from the filing date. Dad's earliest patents wouldn't expire until 2025. Every single algorithm those companies were using. Protected intellectual property. My protected intellectual property. I needed a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. A patent attorney who specialized in intellectual property litigation. The kind who could smell money from 3 states away. Margaret Hoffman's office looked like a museum of corporate warfare. Framed settlement agreements lined the walls like trophies. She listened to my pitch with the kind of poker face that probably cost other people millions. "Mr. Chen," she said, flipping through Dad's patents. "These are remarkably prescient. Your father was essentially designing modern AI systems before most people knew what artificial intelligence meant. We started small. Strategic testing, she called it. Pick a mid-sized company that was clearly infringing, demand reasonable licensing fees, see how they respond. If they wanted to fight, we'd have our legal strategy mapped out. If they settled, we'd know we had something real." The first target was CloudVision AI, a startup that had just raised $40 million in funding. Their entire platform was built around Dad's voice recognition protocol. We sent them a polite letter explaining the situation and requesting a licensing fee of $2.3 million. They settled within 2 weeks. $2.3 million. More money than I'd made in my entire life, just for pointing out that they were using my father's work without permission. Margaret took her 30%. Taxes claimed another chunk, but I still cleared more in 1 month than Sarah's entire company was worth. And we were just getting started. Patent litigation has this weird psychology to it. Companies will spend millions on legal fees, fighting a lawsuit they'll probably lose, but they'll also pay millions to make a problem disappear quietly. Especially tech companies. Bad publicity about patent infringement can tank stock prices faster than a data breach. We developed a system. Margaret's team would identify companies using Dad's algorithms. We'd send professional licensing requests, and then we'd wait. Some fought. Most paid. The settlements got bigger as we moved up the food chain. $5 million from a cloud computing company using Dad's network optimization protocols. $8 million from a social media platform that had built their recommendation engine around his pattern recognition algorithms. $12 million from an automotive company whose self-driving car software was essentially Dad's adaptive learning system, with a few cosmetic changes. The beautiful part: everything was completely legal. Dad had filed the patents properly, paid all the maintenance fees, followed every rule the patent office required. These weren't frivolous lawsuits or patent trolling. These were legitimate intellectual property claims against companies that had genuinely infringed on protected innovations. Meanwhile, Sarah was discovering that running a tech company without actual technical expertise is harder than Harvard Business School probably mentioned. I heard through industry contacts that Chen Technologies was struggling. Client complaints about software bugs, missed project deadlines. Their lead developer had quit after Sarah rejected his requests for additional resources. Word was getting around that the company wasn't the innovative powerhouse it used to be when Dad was running things. Not my problem anymore, right? I had moved into a downtown penthouse, hired Margaret's firm on permanent retainer, and started building my own intellectual property licensing company. Patent settlements were rolling in faster than I could count them. My worthless inheritance had generated over $50 million in less than 6 months. But the universe has this funny way of bringing things full circle. The call came on a Thursday afternoon. Margaret's voice had that particular tone she used when delivering especially good news. "Marcus, we've got a situation that might interest you. Chen Technologies just implemented an AI-powered customer service system in their latest software update." I already knew where this was going. They're using 3 of your father's patents: the Neural Network Optimization Protocol, the Adaptive Learning Framework, and the Dynamic Pattern Recognition System. All clearly protected intellectual property. Chen Technologies, Sarah's company, the business empire she'd inherited while calling my patents a participation trophy. The licensing demand would be $15 million. Not because I wanted to be vindictive, but because that was the fair market rate for the technology they were using. The same rate we'd charged every other company that had infringed on Dad's work. Sarah's lawyer called first. Professional courtesy, he claimed. Surely we could work something out between family members. Maybe a reduced licensing fee, some kind of payment plan. Margaret handled those negotiations with surgical precision. Patents don't care about family relationships. Intellectual property law doesn't have a sibling discount. Chen Technologies had used protected algorithms without permission, just like every other company we'd pursued. The difference was, Sarah's company couldn't afford $15 million. Her entire business was worth less than what she owed in licensing fees. I found myself in the strangest position of my life. The sister who'd fired me, mocked my inheritance, and dismissed Dad's life work as worthless junk, was now begging my lawyers for mercy. But the real conversation was still coming. The phone finally rang at 2:47 p.m. on a Wednesday. I know the exact time because I'd been expecting this call for weeks, watching the legal pressure build like storm clouds on Sarah's horizon. "Marcus?" Her voice sounded different, smaller. The commanding tone she'd used to fire me 6 months ago had evaporated. "We need to talk." I leaned back in my leather executive chair, looking out at the city skyline from my penthouse office. Funny how quickly things change. "About what, Sarah?" "You know about what." A long pause. "The patent claims. The licensing fees." "Marcus, this is insane. $15 million? For what? Some old algorithms Dad wrote 20 years ago?" Some old algorithms. Even now, she didn't understand what she was dealing with. "Those old algorithms are the foundation of your new customer service system," I said, keeping my voice level. "Professional. The same algorithms that have generated over $60 million in licensing fees from other companies who actually respect intellectual property law." The silence stretched so long, I thought she'd hung up. Then came the sound I'd never heard from my sister before. Crying. "Marcus, please. This will destroy the company. Dad's company. Everything he built." Everything he built? The irony was too perfect. "Sarah, you fired me from Dad's company. You called his patents a participation trophy. You said I represented legacy thinking that needed to be eliminated. I was wrong, okay? I was completely wrong. But this isn't about me anymore. We have 42 employees, Marcus. People with families, mortgages, kids in college. You're going to bankrupt all of them because you're angry at me?" That hit different. I'd been so focused on the legal victory, the poetic justice of my sister's company crumbling while my inheritance flourished, that I'd forgotten about the people who actually made the software work. Developers like me who just wanted to build things and pay their bills. But business is business. Patent law doesn't care about employee headcount. Sarah, every other company that used Dad's work paid licensing fees without destroying their workforce. Your problem isn't the patent claim. Your problem is that you're trying to use premium technology without paying for it. We can't afford $15 million. The desperation in her voice was raw, unfiltered. The company's worth maybe $3 million on a good day. We'd have to liquidate everything. Which brought us to the real conversation. I'd spent weeks thinking about this moment. Sarah had inherited what looked like the valuable prize, a functioning business with steady revenue and established clients. I'd gotten what appeared to be worthless junk, a box of failed experiments from Dad's past. But here's what I'd figured out about our father. David Chen wasn't just a successful businessman. He was a chess player who thought 20 years ahead. Sarah, I'm going to make you an offer. One time only. Margaret had warned me about this. Mixing family with business litigation gets messy fast. But I'd already made my decision. I'll buy Chen Technologies. Fair market value, minus the licensing fees you owe. That works out to about negative $12 million. So let's call it even. You transfer ownership to me, I absorb the patent debt, and every employee keeps their job. What about me? The question I'd been waiting for. Sarah Chen, Harvard MBA, Master of Client Relations, reduced to begging her little brother for employment. Head of Business Development. You keep your salary, your benefits, your office. You just report to me now instead of the other way around. The tables had turned completely. The shy engineer she'd dismissed was offering to save her career. Marcus, Her voice broke again. Why? After everything I did to you? I looked at Dad's photo on my desk. The one where he was holding his first patent approval letter, grinning like he'd just won the lottery. Because Dad didn't leave me those patents by accident, Sarah. He knew exactly what he was doing. The real inheritance wasn't the company or the patents. It was the lesson. The call ended. Sarah had agreed to my terms. I sat there for a long time, staring at that box of patents. The same cardboard box she'd mocked 6 months ago. The participation trophy that had just earned me a tech company and taught my sister the most expensive business lesson of her life. Margaret knocked on my door an hour later. The paperwork's ready for signature. Chen Technologies officially becomes yours tomorrow morning. She paused. You know, in 20 years of patent litigation, I've never seen anything quite like this. Neither had I. The next week, I walked back into Dad's office, my office now. Sarah was waiting with the transition documents, looking like she'd aged 5 years in 5 days. The confident Harvard MBA who'd fired me was gone. In her place sat someone who finally understood that business isn't just about networking and presentations. The employees want to meet their new CEO, she said quietly. I thought about that moment a lot, standing in front of 42 people who'd watched their company nearly collapse because their previous boss didn't understand the technology they were selling. Some of them had probably wondered if I'd come back seeking revenge. Instead, I told them the truth. We're going to keep building things, better things, and we're going to make sure we understand exactly what we're building before we sell it. 6 months later, Chen Technologies had landed 3 major contracts. Turned out, when your CEO actually understands the code, clients trust you more. Who knew? Sarah adapted faster than I expected. Her business skills were real. She'd just been managing a company without understanding its foundation. Now, she focused on what she did best: relationships, negotiations, growth strategy. I handled everything technical. We made a better team than either of us had realized. The patents kept generating settlements. My licensing company grew into something Dad never could have imagined. But the real victory wasn't the money or the corporate takeover. It was understanding why Dad had split the inheritance the way he did. Sarah got the business because she needed to learn that success without substance is fragile. I got the patents because Dad knew I'd see their real value when the world was ready. He'd been playing chess while we thought we were inheriting checkers pieces. The lawyer's voice trembled through the phone. "Mr. Chen, we have another company requesting licensing terms." I smiled, looking at Sarah across our shared conference table. "Transfer them to my business development director. She'll handle the negotiations." Dad would have been proud.